Few here in the United States can imagine the impact the war had on China, but that's not the case for Betty Jane Gerber. She was the daughter of a diplomat and an eyewitness to history. As CCTV's Mike Walter reports, her home movies captured the bombings and suffering endured by the Chinese people.
Our lives and our hearts really were in China.
And their hearts were heavy. These are home movies of Betty Jane Gerber as a little girl growing up along with her older brother in China, a country, but also a war zone. Her father, Nelson Johnson, was the U.S. ambassador to China. So there are the typical things you see on home movies. Milestones, for example, the ambassador's wedding in China. Here are shots of the embassy grounds and street scenes. However, some horrific events were not recorded, yet committed to memory.
They were really brutal to the Chinese. They wouldn't accost us personally, but our car might be stopped and they drag the chauffeur out to beat them up. And my brothers remembered seeing somebody have his head cut off. And as children, you don't forget that.
As the war moved from one section of China to another, the family moved too. Betty Jane says they lived in Nanking for a short time, but the family left in a hurry as the Japanese advanced.
It wasn't more than a very short time before the Japanese army, had entered Nanking and the rape of Nanking took place. 200,000 Chinese men, women, and children were slaughtered. And I think everybody knows what a depredation that was. So it was a situation that I think will never be forgotten.
It was at this time when the family went in different directions. The children and their mother moving back to Beijing, where they could be protected by U.S. Marines, while her father moved to Chongqing. They would be separated for 4 years.
While we were separated, every day he wrote letters to my brother and me, and every day he would go from his house to the part of Chongqing that was being bombed. And so he was writing a story to really let us know something about the father that we didn't see, because he wasn't certain that he would survive this. They were being bombed daily.
Her father is gone now, but the reminders remain, like the home movies and letters. One of the letters is very dear to her. It's one he wrote to someone after the U.S. entered the war, and after watching all this bombing, her father began to imagine a China free of suffering. It was written in November of 1942.
I watched Japan moving against an almost defenseless people, and I learned to admire the courage with which they faced the terrible depredations of Japanese soldiery in their cities. And I look forward now to a Pacific that will be changed, a Pacific where peace will reign, a Pacific in which China will be enabled to play the great part which the destiny of the Chinese people has marked for them. Very truly yours, Nelson Tressler Johnson.
She shares her father's letter and his sentiments for a long and sustained peaceful Pacific. Mike Walter, CCTV.
Remarkable story there.